Beneath the Ice. Antarctica's Hidden Worlds. Chapter 1: The White Frontier. The continent announced itself long before the expedition ship ever touched the pack ice. A towering wall of white rose on the horizon, immense, silent, and utterly indifferent to the humans approaching it. Antarctica had always seemed like a blank page on the world map, as though nothing could possibly survive here long enough to leave its mark. But Dr. Lena Marlowe, geophysicist and expedition lead, knew better. Beneath those miles of ice lay landscapes far older than the ice sheet itself, mountain ranges buried in time, liquid lakes untouched since the age of dinosaurs, and magnetic anomalies that defied all established geological rules. She had come to unravel what lived and slept beneath this continental shroud. The air itself felt ancient. When Lena stepped onto the ice for the first time, it was as though she were inhaling a different era, crisp, razor-thin, filled with the distant whisper of drifting snow. The wind swept across the plateau in long, mournful strokes, reshaping dunes of frost as though sculpting a story only it knew. Her team disembarked behind her, glaciologists, microbiologists, a pair of aerospace engineers from NASA, and an enigmatic government liaison whose real purpose remained unclear. The assembled group was not typical for a scientific mission, and that alone hinted that the ice hid more than the public yet understood. Their base camp, a cluster of insulated domes at the edge of the Queen Maud Mountains, sat atop nearly 3,000 meters of ice. But the ice here was restless, moving, cracking, and drifting ever so slowly toward the coast. Instruments continuously groaned under strain, recording seismic rumbles from far below. The continent wasn't frozen, it was alive, shifting, grinding, reshaping itself in glacial slow motion. And somehow, in the spaces carved by time and pressure, entire unseen worlds persisted. Lena's first task was to revisit the satellite data that had inspired the mission. NASA ICESat-3 had detected a strange fluctuation beneath the ice, a dome-shaped cavity whose dimensions exceeded anything they'd ever recorded. Not a lake. Not a melt channel. Something hollow. Something that absorbed magnetic readings at a rate inconsistent with rock, water, or known voids. Some scientists whispered that it might be geothermal. Others suggested volcanic architecture. A few more daring wondered whether a massive, isolated biosphere might still pulse with life beneath the frozen crust. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, though in Antarctica's austral summer it never truly set, Lena stood on a ridge overlooking the blinding white expanse. Every color was washed to silver. Every shadow stretched like a doorway. The silence was unsettling, thick, almost reverent, as if the continent were waiting. Antarctica had swallowed empires of explorers and crushed steel with glacial patience. Yet it also preserved fossils, meteorites, ancient air bubbles carrying the signatures of forgotten atmospheres. What else did those depths hold? What stories had never been told simply because no human had reached them? On the first night, while the generators hummed softly and the team settled into their routines, Lena reviewed the sonar pulses captured by their under-ice drones. There, at almost 4 kilometers down, linear structures appeared. Not smooth walls of ice, but angular surfaces, as though carved. The shapes were too geometric to be natural, too precise to be dismissed as noise. Her heart thudded. That feature had not been in last year's survey. Something had shifted. Something had opened. The continent had begun revealing itself. Lena closed her laptop, removed her gloves, and placed her bare hand on the cold metal table. She whispered to the darkened room, "We're not alone down here, not really." Outside, the katabatic winds roared, lifting powder into spiraling white ghosts. Antarctica, vast and inscrutable, watched her back. Tomorrow, they would drill. And tomorrow, the first secret would awaken. Chapter 2: The First Drilling. The drilling tower rose like a skeletal monument against the endless white, its steel frame trembling under the assault of katabatic winds. As Lena approached, the structure emitted a low, rhythmic moan, almost a warning. The team had assembled before dawn, though dawn in Antarctica was only a subtle shift in the shade of the sky. Floodlights cut through the frosted air as engineers prepared the thermal drill, a cylindrical device capable of melting a narrow vertical shaft through kilometers of ice. Normally, drilling expeditions targeted known lakes like Vostok or subglacial channels. But today, they were boring into the unknown, into the strange cavity and the geometric formations detected by sonar. Dr. Aidan Chowdhury, the team's lead glaciologist, stood stiffly beside Lena, his beard already collecting needles of frost. "This location still bothers me," he murmured, handing her a tablet. "Look at the stress lines." She studied the data. The ice sheet here was under tension, stretched by ancient movements of the buried gambits of mountains far below. But at the precise drilling coordinate, the stress patterns twisted as though wrapped around a void. Not one formed by melting or tectonics. Something else had displaced the ice long before humans stood on two legs. "It's stable enough," Lena said. "We go slow." Aidan gave her a look that landed somewhere between trust and fear. "Do you ever get the feeling we're opening a time capsule not meant to be opened?" She did, of course. But she pushed the thought aside. Curiosity had guided explorers since the first humans crossed frozen seas. And Antarctica was the last place on Earth still holding back its secrets with glacial stubbornness. The drill lowered into place, steaming as it activated. At first, the melting was painfully slow. The upper layers of ice were dense, compressed over millions of years, forming a crystalline armor. Within hours, however, the drill hit softer ice layers filled with ancient trapped air, faintly popping as bubbles collapsed under heat. Aidan monitored everything with hawk-like precision, while the NASA engineers adjusted power levels to avoid fracturing the surrounding structure. Then, hours later, something unexpected happened. The drill accelerated. Not mechanically, but physically, falling faster as though gravity had suddenly strengthened. The tension cables whined as they unspooled more quickly than they should have. Aidan swore under his breath. "We've breached into a cavity," Lena said softly. "The shaft must have opened into an empty chamber. But the depth this is far shallower than projected. There wasn't supposed to be a chamber here." The drill now hung suspended in an unseen space, still glowing, still steaming, but no longer melting ice. They lowered a lighted probe, a small spherical drone equipped with cameras and environmental sensors. The cable rattled as the device traveled down into the darkness. Then the feed came online. A cavern emerged on the screen, vast, smooth, and impossibly symmetrical. The walls were not sculpted by water or shaped by glacial flow. They were curved with deliberate geometry, forming a chamber nearly 100 meters wide. Frost covered the surfaces like a thin film, shimmering under the probe's LEDs. At the chamber's center stood something even more astonishing, a column rising from the floor, encased in ice, perfectly cylindrical, as though man-made or made by something with engineering comprehension. The room went silent. Even the wind outside seemed to hush. Aidan leaned closer. "Lena, that's not rock. Look at the reflection on the upper ridge's metal. It's metallic." The government liaison, Agent Cade Roswell, stepped forward for the first time since the expedition began. No images of this chamber leave the internal network. Understood? Lena bristled. We're scientists. We publish findings. That's not this time, Cade interrupted. His voice was cold as the ice outside. What you've found is classified until otherwise stated. Lena turned back to the screen. The probe hovered above the frozen column, capturing surface readings. Temperature lower than ambient ice. Magnetic reading unstable, oscillating. Radiation anomalous but contained. The data didn't align with any geological explanation. Then the chamber trembled. A deep, resonant vibration rolled through the probe's audio feed like a groan echoing from the bones of the earth. A soft crackling emerged from the frozen column as fractures skittered across its icy shell. Retract the probe, Lena ordered, her pulse spiking. Now. The screen flashed white. The feed erupted in static, then died completely. The only sound in the room was the soft click of ice shifting far below. Something beneath Antarctica had awakened. Something that had waited a very, very long time. Chapter 3: The Chamber That Shouldn't Exist. The silence in the command dome was suffocating. Equipment hummed, heaters clicked, and the wind howled faintly beyond the insulated walls, but none of it broke the tension settling over the team. The probe's feed had not returned. Total signal loss. Either the electronics had been fried by the anomaly or something had physically destroyed it. Neither option brought comfort. Lena paced beside the central console, replaying the last frames of the video, the fractures snaking across the frozen column, the glow intensifying, the tremor that rippled through the chamber. The geometry of the cavern, the presence of metal deep beneath miles of ice, and the magnetic readings that defied every known model, all of it pointed to a discovery that shouldn't have existed within Earth's natural history. Aiden broke the silence first. We need to lower another probe. A sturdier one. Something shielded. Agent Roswell immediately objected. Negative. The risk is unacceptable. Lena faced him. Risk. We're sitting over an active anomaly that just reacted to our presence. If anything, we need more data. Not less. Cade's jaw tensed. My orders are to keep this contained. If whatever is down there destabilizes the ice shelf, destabilizes. Aiden snapped. Do you even understand what we're looking at? That geometry is too perfect to be natural. If this structure predates the ice sheet, it could be millions of years old. This is the archaeological equivalent of discovering a city on Mars. Cade glared. And that's exactly why it must be handled carefully. Not recklessly. Lena stepped between them, her voice steady. We establish facts first. Everything else comes later. Right now, we don't know if we've uncovered a geological anomaly, an ancient ecosystem, or something engineered by a lost civilization or by natural processes we simply don't yet comprehend. Science begins with observation. Cade's expression softened slightly, though his eyes remained guarded. Fine. One more probe. But I want direct oversight. Any indication of instability and we stop. With that compromise, the team moved quickly. A sturdier drone Nerade 2 was prepared. This one bore radiation shielding, reinforced hull plating, and a secondary tether capable of snapping tight if the main cable was compromised. Its sensors included LiDAR for mapping and particle detectors more commonly used in deep space exploration. As the drone descended into the shaft, the tension in the dome was palpable. Lena watched the depth counter scroll downward 3,124 meters, 3,146, 3,200. When it reached the previous distance, the cable slackened again. The chamber. The feed flickered, then steadied. And the breath of every person in the room stilled. The cavern looked different. Where frost had coated the walls before, the ice now shimmered with a faint luminescence, soft, pulsing, like the glow of deep ocean bioluminescence. The fractures spidering across the frozen column had widened, revealing slivers of something glowing blue-white from within. Aidan leaned in, whispering, "It's releasing energy." The drone rotated, scanning the walls. What had looked like simple geometric curvature now resolved into vast lattices, interlocking runic or structural patterns carved with precision beyond anything erosion could craft. Some were straight, others angular, many forming repeating sequences like a language. The ice preserved them with perfect fidelity, as though displaying secrets long entombed. Cade muttered under his breath, "This is impossible." Lena's heart hammered. Zoom on the column. The drone obeyed, drifting toward the frozen pillar at the cavern's center. Sensors lit up with noise, magnetic flux spiking wildly, heat signatures fluctuating despite the sub-zero environment, and a faint rhythmic vibration picked up by the drone's pressure sensors. Then something appeared on the display, etched into the metallic surface beneath the ice. A symbol. A perfect circle intersected by 3 diagonal lines, each terminating in a small triangular point. Not random. Not natural. It looked engineered, intentional, crafted with purpose. Dr. May Lyon, the expedition's microbiologist, whispered what everyone was thinking: someone built this. Or something. Before anyone could respond, the column pulsed. A single flash of radiant blue surged outward, illuminating the chamber. The drone's sensors overloaded, throwing error after error. LiDAR scrambled. Temperature gauges spiked, then dropped. Magnetic readings went off scale. The cavern trembled. Cracks raced along the walls, first thin as hair, then widening with an unnerving groan that echoed through the probe's audio feed. Fragments of ice drifted downward like crystalline snow. The entire chamber was shifting, reshaping, awakening from a slumber older than recorded time. "Retract it," Lena shouted. But before the winch operator could respond, the drone's camera captured something else. Movement. A ripple of shadow within the ice layer, something serpentine, fluid, pulsing behind the translucent wall. Then another. And another. Shapes moving not like animals, but like currents of energy, swirling in synchronized patterns. The ice wasn't just glowing. It was alive. The feed cut once more, static, then darkness. Lena stood motionless, pulse roaring in her ears. The cavern wasn't a ruin. It wasn't a natural anomaly. It wasn't abandoned. Something beneath Antarctica had seen them. And now it was responding. Chapter 4: Signals in the Ice. The loss of the second probe sent a wave of unease through the entire research dome. No one spoke for several minutes. The only sound was the thrum of the heaters fighting to keep the brutal cold from swallowing the interior temperature. Outside, the winds howled across the ice shelf, as if echoing the turmoil brewing inside the team itself. Lena stared at the blank monitor, her gloved fingers still hovering above the controls. She replayed the last few seconds of the feed in her mind, the glowing cracks, the shimmering movement within the walls, the synchronized pulses of light. Whatever lay in that chamber had reacted to their intrusion, not violently, not yet, but unmistakably aware. Aidan finally broke the stillness. We just triggered something. A biological response, electromagnetic discharge or something we don't have terminology for yet. That wasn't biology, May said quietly. Not in any form we've studied. Those movements were too uniform. Too patterned. Cade folded his arms, his expression unreadable. Patterned behavior suggests intelligence. Or machinery. Lena exhaled sharply, frustrated. Or a natural phenomenon we don't understand. The deep ocean is full of things that look impossible until you study them. Cade's eyes narrowed. Do you really believe that's what you saw? She didn't answer. Because no, she didn't. There had been coordination in the light. Rhythm. Reaction. As if something behind those walls had recognized the drone as an anomaly of its own and responded accordingly. Before the tension could escalate, the dome's communication terminal chimed. A soft, insistent tone. It wasn't an incoming message. It was a proximity alert from the seismic array they'd placed around camp. Lena hurried to the screen. A pulse. Not a tremor. Not random glacial movement. A rhythmic vibration coming from beneath the ice. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Aidan's voice cracked. Scientific instruments don't produce repeating sequences like that. Not from natural ice flow. May swallowed hard. That's communication. A signal. Before Lena could respond, the floor beneath them trembled, subtle but unmistakable. Cups rattled. Paper rustled. The lights flickered. Another pulse rolled upward through the ice, stronger this time, almost like a heartbeat. Lena steadied herself against the console. It's responding to us. To the drilling. Cade spoke into his radio immediately. All personnel, initiate lockdown protocol. No one outside. No one near the shaft. But before he finished speaking, the seismic feed spiked again, multiple signals now, fanning outward beneath the continent like ripples in a subterranean ocean. The pulses were spreading. May's eyes widened. It's not localized anymore. Whatever's beneath us, it's expanding its activity. The entire dome darkened for a fraction of a second. All lights died. The heaters cut off. Every monitor blinked out, leaving the team in complete, smothering blackness. Lena's breath caught in her throat. Then the emergency power kicked in. Red lights glowed overhead, staining the room in a blood-hued haze. The frost on the dome's interior walls shimmered like scar tissue. The monitors flickered back online one by one. Not with their usual interfaces, but with a single repeating pattern. A circle intersected by 3 diagonal lines, the same symbol etched into the frozen metallic column. Cade swore under his breath. That wasn't a malfunction. Something hijacked the power systems. Aidan pointed to the symbol. It's the exact geometry we saw in the chamber. Identical proportions. Identical angles. May whispered the words none of them wanted to say aloud. It's sending us a message. Lena leaned closer to the screen, studying the symbol. The lines glowed with soft blue pulses, slow at first, then rapidly accelerating. It's not just a message, she murmured. It's a pattern of activation. Like a sequence or a key. The symbol suddenly shifted, distorting into a new configuration. Then another. And another. A series of geometric frames appeared in rapid succession, arranged like steps in a process. A language of shapes. A system. An instruction. A code. Aiden's voice trembled. "Lean, I think it wants us to do something." But before she could reply, the ground rumbled again, this time far deeper, far more powerful. A thunderous crack echoed across the plateau. Outside, the ice was moving, shifting, splitting. The hidden world beneath Antarctica was no longer content to remain hidden. And whatever lay below was no longer merely reacting, it was awakening. Chapter 5: The Awakening Beneath. The crack that thundered across the plateau was unlike anything the team had ever heard. It wasn't the sharp, brittle break of surface ice. It was deeper, older, like the groan of the planet itself shifting under strain. Loose equipment rattled across the floor. Snow slid off the dome's exterior in cascading sheets. The drilling tower emitted a tortured metallic whine as its foundation settled unevenly. Lena rushed to the observation window, fighting the instinct to recoil from the near-blinding white outside. Even through the storm-lashed glass, she could see it. A long, jagged fissure had opened across the ice shelf less than 50 meters from their drilling site. It stretched outward in both directions, splitting the landscape like a lightning bolt frozen mid-strike. Aiden joined her, breath visible in frantic bursts. "That's not a natural fracture pattern. Look at the symmetry, those branching angles are too consistent. It's propagating along structural lines we don't even have mapped." May checked the environmental sensors. "We're picking up increased heat signatures deep below. Something down there is generating thermal output, but not like geothermal vents. This is periodic. Controlled." Cade stepped in front of them, radio in hand. "We're evacuating. Evac shuttles will arrive in." A burst of static cut him off. The radio screeched, then went completely silent. Cade frowned, tapping it. Nothing. Lena moved back toward the main console, where the symbol, the circle intersected by 3 lines, still pulsed on every screen. Its glow shifted, intensifying, repeating a sequence of variations. She traced the pattern with her eyes, noting how each alteration seemed to correspond with the seismic pulses. "It's coordinating," she whispered. "The signals, the tremors, the power takeover, it's all synchronized. It's not random or hostile. It's organized." Organized by what, she didn't know. And that terrified her. A sudden alarm blared from the drone control station. A new transmission was coming through, a weak signal, flickering, unstable. The operator pulled it onto the main display, and the image that appeared made Lena's blood run cold. It was the view from Nereid 2. The drone's camera had somehow reactivated. The chamber was no longer dormant. In the center, the metallic column, once locked beneath layers of ancient ice, now stood almost completely exposed. Cracked fragments of ice littered the cavern floor around its base. The symbol etched into its surface glowed with an internal luminescence, like molten glass beneath a crystalline shell. The swelling shapes behind the ice walls had intensified. No longer faint ripples, they now moved with intense spiraling, converging, diverging in a pattern that made Lena's head ache to follow. It was as if the cavern itself were breathing. Aiden's voice trembled. "Is that fluid movement? Or light?" "Both," May answered. "Look at the refraction patterns. Those aren't solids or liquids. They're fields. Particles suspended in some kind of matrix." Cade's jaw flexed. "Or it's a machine. A massive one. As they watched, the column's glow reached a crescendo and then emitted a pulse so bright the drone's camera nearly whitewashed. But the camera held. What it revealed next stole the breath from the room. Lines, thin, luminous filaments extended from the column and began threading themselves into the cavern walls. The shapes embedded in the ancient ice responded, their own glow intensifying as though completing circuits left dormant for eons. "It's a network," Lena murmured. "A system coming online." May stared in awe. A dormant structure buried under millions of years of ice but still functional. Still waiting. "And we," Aiden whispered, "are the trigger." The seismic monitor spiked again so violently that the alarms overloaded and shut off. The entire dome shook as though something massive shifted far below. Cade slammed his hand on the console. "Everyone gear up. We're leaving on foot if we have to." But the moment he said it, the deck beneath them jolted not from beneath, but from above. A deafening blast of wind ripped over the dome. Lena turned back to the window and froze. The sky, normally a soft silver, was streaked with twisting plumes of light rising from several points across the plateau. The beams looked almost like auroras but denser, structured, and pulsing in perfect sync with the symbols on the screens. Aiden exhaled, voice hollow. "The signals, they're not just beneath us. They're spreading under the entire ice sheet." Cade gripped the table to steady himself. "What the hell is happening?" Lena answered without taking her eyes off the lights. "The hidden world beneath Antarctica is waking up. And it's not just in one chamber. It's everywhere." Chapter 6: The Ice Network. Night had no meaning in Antarctica's austral summer, yet the sky darkened anyway. The pulsing plumes of light, those impossible pillars rising from across the plateau, grew stronger, denser, as though they were pulling shadows upward rather than emitting brightness. The effect was unnatural, like watching the aurora borealis reverse its flow and siphon energy back into the heavens. The team stood frozen at the observation window, transfixed by the shimmering distortions spreading across the horizon. The plumes weren't random, they appeared at precise intervals, too evenly spaced to occur naturally. They formed a grid. A network. May was the first to break the stunned silence. "Those beams, they're aligning with the positions of subglacial lakes. Look here, here, and here. Lake Vostok. Lake Sovtskaya. Lake 90 degrees E." She traced each glowing point on a topographic map, her voice tightening with every confirmation. "These locations are water reservoirs trapped beneath miles of ice. If that structure is connected to the maiden finished for her, then this system spans the entire continent." Lena swallowed hard. "We're standing on top of a machine or a biome of unimaginable scale." Cade's expression darkened as he watched the grid complete its final alignments. "And we're triggering its self-activation." Before Lena could respond, the dome's floor shook violently, nearly throwing them off balance. Racks toppled. Papers scattered. The lighting flickered between red and darkness. The seismic console erupted with warnings, flashing red across every panel. Pulses were no longer isolated, they were radiating outward in concentric waves, each stronger than the last. The symbols on the monitors shifted again. Not the circle intersected by 3 lines. A new shape. A triangle. Inside it, a spiraling pattern of smaller triangles. A symbol that felt less like communication and more like warning. May stared, pale. "That's unmistakably a fractal. A self-replicating form. This is reactive geometry. Instructional geometry." Something is telling something else to multiply. Aiden turned toward Lena, voice barely holding steady. We triggered a cascade. The entire network is sinking. This wasn't meant to be disturbed. Lena forced her breathing to slow. We don't know that. We don't know anything yet. But the chamber footage from Nerade 2 flickered suddenly back into view without them prompting it. The drone had regained full function, and its camera swept across the reconfigured cavern. The walls were no longer semi-transparent ice. They were glowing like living tissue. Filaments stretched across the chamber, weaving through cracks and fissures like neural pathways. They connected the metallic column to the walls, to the floor, to embedded shapes Lena could only describe as nodes. The swirling energy currents behind the ice were now visible, fully illuminated, moving as though responding to coordinated impulses. A living network. A technological organism. Or something between both. May whispered, "This isn't a structure. It's a continent-wide system for storing or transmitting information. Or energy." Or she couldn't finish. The drone feed shifted again, this time autonomously zooming on the metallic column. Its symbol pulsed once, then faded. A new glow formed along its base, small, almost delicate openings revealing themselves as the ice receded. Lena felt her heart lurch. They weren't openings. They were vents. A slow exhalation of pale, shimmering mist drifted out. Aiden staggered back from the monitor. That's not water vapor. Those are spores? Particulates? No, those patterns are too regular. They're structured. Cade clenched his fists. Shut it off. Shut the feed off. Right now. But Lena wasn't listening to him. Because the mist swirling out from the column wasn't drifting randomly. It was flowing through the neural-like lattice in purposeful currents, illuminating pathways throughout the chamber. Activating something deeper. Something older. Something vast. A moment later, a deafening crack tore through the plateau, strong enough to throw Lena to her knees. The dome supports groaned under the pressure as the fissure near the drilling site widened dramatically, splitting the ice clean down to the hidden layers below. A roar of displaced air surged upward. And from deep beneath the miles of ice, light erupted. Brilliant, spiraling, and impossibly bright. Aiden stared in horror. Lena, that's coming directly from the chamber." Cade grabbed Lena's arm. "We're leaving. Now. Before that thing reaches the surface." But Lena didn't move. Because in the heart of that luminous eruption, she saw something impossible, a structure rising. Not physical, not solid, but a lattice of light and geometry assembling upward from the depths, as if the buried system were projecting a map of itself into the air above. And the map showed an entire world beneath Antarctica, cities of light, caverns stretching for hundreds of miles, massive chambers, biological reservoirs, cyclopean structures, a hidden civilization. Dormant. Waiting. And now awake. Lena whispered, voice trembling, "We didn't discover Antarctica's hidden worlds. We reactivated them." Chapter 7. The World Below the Ice. The map of light hovered above the fissure like a three-dimensional hologram, except it wasn't a projection from any human device. The structure rising from the depths bent the air itself, warping the atmosphere with a shimmering distortion that cast shifting patterns across the snow. The team stood in stunned silence as the luminous lattice rearranged itself, revealing levels, chambers, and branching corridors that extended downward for miles. May's voice trembled as she pointed toward a cluster of swirling light deep within the diagram. These look like biological reservoirs. Vast ones. Entire ecosystems sealed off from the surface. Lakes, caverns, microclimates, maybe even forms of energy exchange we've never seen. Aidan leaned closer, squinting. And look at these patterns, those aren't lakes. They're interconnected pockets. Like organs in a living system. Cade scowled. You're both assuming it's alive. For all we know, it's a long-dead machine running automated recovery protocols. Lena shook her head slowly. Machines don't breathe. And this, she gestured toward the carved paths of light, this is behavior. Reaction. Purpose. The ground shook again, this time not from seismic shifts, but from something rhythmic. A pulse. The same sequence that had echoed through their instruments earlier. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Pause. 3 pulses. Except now it was louder. Stronger. Closer. Aidan's heartbeat stuttered. It's calling out again. Or answering something. May stepped away from the monitor entirely. Could it be communicating across the entire continent? From chamber to chamber? If this is a network, it may be waking up in stages. Lena felt a chill crawl up her spine that had nothing to do with the cold. Or it's searching. For what? Aidan asked. But she already feared the answer. For us. Before anyone could speak further, Nereid 2 video feed flickered violently and then stabilized with shocking clarity. The drone was no longer in the cavern where they'd lost sight of it. It had been moved. Nereid 2 now hovered inside a massive vertical shaft wider than any subway tunnel, its walls lined with glowing veins of light. The energy flowing through them pulsed in perfect sync with the tremors shaking the surface. A slow, rising hum vibrated through the speakers. May gasped. It's pulling power from somewhere. From deeper still. The drone rotated on its own, as if guided, and pointed downward. The team collectively inhaled. Far below, at the base of the shaft, was a sphere of light immense, rotating slowly, emitting waves of energy that distorted the drone's sensors. It wasn't mechanical in any recognizable sense, yet its structure was too perfect to be natural. Intricate patterns spiraled across its surface, shifting in repeating cycles like an evolving algorithm. Aidan whispered, "That's a core. A central node. Every chamber, every lake, every fissure, it all links back to that." Cade stepped forward, voice low. "Shut the feed off. Whatever that thing is, we're giving it eyes into our systems by keeping this connection open." But it was too late. The sphere pulsed. A blinding flash filled the drone's camera. When the image returned, Nereid 2 was no longer observing. It was seen. A shape indistinct, amorphous, like a shadow formed from light itself, moved between the drone and the glowing sphere. It shifted with fluid precision, neither walking nor floating, but existing in a way that defied all intuition. The outline pulsed faintly with the same rhythm that echoed through the continent. Pulse. 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 Cade stepped back. What is that?" May covered her mouth. "It's not solid. It's a field. A field shaped into something." The shape approached the drone. Sensors scrambled. Magnetic readings spiked. Then a soft chime echoed through the dome. One of the monitors changed. Not to static. Not to the symbols. But to a single sentence. A sentence no one in the room expected to see. We remember you. Lena's breath caught. This isn't first contact. Aiden stared at the screen, horrified. It's remembering contact from long ago. Cade's voice dropped to a rasp. Meaning what? Meaning, Lena thought, heart pounding so hard she felt faint, humanity wasn't the first to stand on this continent. And whatever built this world beneath the ice knew us. Or knew something that looked like us. Before she could speak, another line appeared beneath the first. We waited. And then, the 13 keys must be awakened. A blast of wind slammed the dome. The fissure outside expanded again, splitting wide enough that the ground visibly sagged. The map of light overhead surged in intensity, spreading further outward, linking the surface to the depths below like circuitry in a titanic, slumbering brain. Aiden whispered, shaking, "What are the 13 keys?" The answer came on the monitor instantly, as if the entity was listening. You have opened the first. The dome trembled. The lights dimmed. And the ground beneath them began to collapse. Chapter 8: Collapse into the unknown. The floor lurched beneath them with a violent heave, throwing the entire team off their feet. Equipment skidded across the dome. A table toppled. A monitor shattered against the floor as the structure groaned under enormous strain. Outside, the fissure widened into a gaping chasm, swallowing snow, ice, and metal supports with terrifying ease. Alarms shrieked, first one, then a chorus, until power flickered and they died altogether. Move! Cade shouted, grabbing Lena by the arm. We have to evacuate the dome before it collapses. But where could they go? The ice itself was splitting beneath them. Aiden scrambled to his feet, clutching the seismic tablet which was glitching wildly but still functional under backup battery. The entire shelf is destabilizing. We triggered a chain reaction across the subaxial network. May pointed toward the observation window, her face drained of all color. Look. The surface outside was buckling. The once flat plateau now writhed like a frozen ocean. Plates of ice heaved upward, tilting like tectonic plates, while deep cracks spiderwebbed miles in every direction. Between them, blue-white light surged upward like glowing magma from the world below. And then they felt it. A pull. A downward pressure, subtle at first, then rapidly strengthening, as if gravity itself were shifting beneath their feet. Lena felt her stomach lurch. It's collapsing inward, pulling everything toward the central chamber. Cade grabbed his radio again, shouting into the dead static. Base camp, do you copy? Anyone in range, respond. Nothing. The dome's outer shell groaned, metal bending, bolts popping one by one. Snow blasted against the walls as the ground gave another violent shudder. We have to get out, Lena said. Now. But before they could reach the exit, the dome tilted sharply. The floor pitched downward as the entire structure slid toward the widening chasm, dragged by the collapsing shelf. Aiden slammed into a support beam. May grabbed onto a table leg as it slid across the floor. Lena dug her fingers beneath a ridged panel, clinging with everything she had. Cade, bracing himself against the doorway, shouted over the deafening roar, "Everyone anchor." Brace for, the ground vanished beneath them. The dome dropped. For a split second, they were weightless, suspended in a void of white and blue light. Then, impact. The dome fell only a short distance before being caught by something, a ledge of ice, a buried ridge, but it tilted at a nearly 40-degree angle, wedged precariously over nothingness. The dome groaned, creaking as it settled. May coughed, struggling upright. Is everyone alive? Aiden nodded shakily. For now. Cade kicked open the damaged door, forcing it wide enough to look outside. His breath caught. Lena, you need to see this. She crawled to the doorway, bracing against the slanted frame. And froze. The dome now rested on the rim of an enormous cavern, a shaft that spiraled downward into glowing depths. Walls of ice and ancient rock reflected the brilliant lattice of light flowing through the subglacial network. Tendrils of energy pulsed along veins carved into the walls, oscillating with perfect precision. Far below, the luminous sphere seen earlier by the drone burned like a star trapped beneath the world. But worse, figures moved along the cavern walls. Not solid. Not flesh. Patterns of light drifting through the ice-like sentient currents, rearranging themselves in spiraling motions. They were organizing, converging, forming shapes that resembled a lattice of beings, May whispered. Cooperative structures. Aiden's voice cracked. It's assembling something. Cade's hand drifted to his sidearm, useless against light, but instinctive. We need to climb. Get to stable ground before this place swallows us. But Lena wasn't looking for an escape. Her eyes were locked on a new message forming across the cavern walls, etched in radiant blue, stretching for hundreds of meters. The first key is awakened. 12 remain. The world must remember. The light surged brighter, pulsing through ice and stone. A second message followed. Descend. May whispered, it's guiding us. No, Cade snarled. It's manipulating us. Lena stared into the abyss, the pulsing currents forming a spiraling descent pathway as if inviting them downward into the hidden world. She felt the pull again. Not physical. Something deeper. Purposeful. The dome creaked behind them, metal straining. It wouldn't hold much longer. Cade looked at Lena. We climb out. Or we die here. But Lena didn't answer. Because from the depths of the shaft a new shape was rising, a construct of pure light, assembling itself piece by piece from synchronized currents. It looked almost human. Chapter 9, The Shape That Rose from Light. For a long, terrible moment, no one in the tilted dome spoke. The shape rising from the depths was assembling itself in slow, deliberate layers, light folding into form, geometry aligning into limbs, contours shimmering into the unmistakable outline of a human figure. Not solid. Not flesh. But recognizable. Aiden's breath hitched. That can't be, that's not possible. May clutched Lena's arm. It's copying us. Or remembering us. Cade stepped back from the doorway, face pale despite the cold. His voice lost its usual command. We move. Now. Whatever that thing is, it's not here to help. But the figure continued rising, weightless, sending the spiraling lattice of energy that wound up the cavern walls. Its body was made of intersecting fractal patterns, geometric lines that reconfigured themselves with every pulse of the continental network. Where eyes should have been were twin spheres of rotating light, focused directly on the dome above. Lena felt those lights lock onto her, and something ancient echoed in her chest like a memory she'd never lived. We were expected, she whispered. A new message materialized across the cavern wall, massive, glowing, impossible to misinterpret. You returned. Aiden stared. Returned? Humanity has never been here before. But even as he said it, doubt crept into his voice. There were theories, fringe archaeology, myths of lost civilizations, whispers of a pre-ice age humanity far more advanced than accepted history allowed. No evidence had ever surfaced. Until now. May stepped toward the opening, eyes wide with dawning realization. What if the builders weren't aliens? What if they were? Cade snapped, "Don't start with ancient civilization fantasies. It's not fantasy," May shot back. "Look at its shape. Its symmetry. Its proportions. That thing is built from a template, one that matches human physiology more closely than any known species." Lena continued staring at the figure as it drew closer, climbing without touching the walls, almost as if buoyed by thought alone. "It's not copying us," she murmured. "We're copying them." The dome shuddered, metal groaning under the strain. A support beam snapped overhead, crashing into the floor in a spray of sparks. "We have to get out," Aiden shouted. But the cavern's pathway shifted. The spiraling staircase of light leading upward flickered, collapsed, then reassembled itself into a downward ascending ramp aligned directly beneath the dome's damaged entrance. It looked constructed as if the hidden world were reshaping itself to guide them. May pointed. "It wants us to descend." Cade shook his head violently. "No chance. It's funneling us. Herding us. We're not lab animals." But the figure of light paused midair, hovering. The fractal patterns that made up its face shifted, forming a new message etched into its luminous contours. "No harm. No force. Remember." Lena stepped closer to the opening, ignoring Cade's warning hand on her shoulder. She could feel something radiating from the entity, not warmth or cold, but a familiar pressure, like déjà vu translated into sensation. The figure extended an arm, not outward, but downward, pointing along the new path beneath the dome. "Descend to the vault." A second figure emerged behind the first. Then a third. Each humanoid. Each made of shifting geometric light. Each radiating the same silent, impossible recognition. Cade lost what little composure he had left. "We're leaving. Out the other side of the dome now." He forced open the rear maintenance hatch and gestured for the others to follow. But Lena didn't move. Because just as Cade yanked open the hatch, the outside ground collapsed completely. A massive slab of ice hundreds of meters across sheared away and fell into the abyss. A gale of freezing wind rushed past them as the world outside the rear hatch disappeared into a bottomless void. May screamed and stumbled back. Aiden pulled her to safety. Cade staggered, barely catching himself before he, too, would have fallen. The message on the cavern wall pulsed brighter. "The surface is not safe. The vault will sustain you." Lena whispered, almost to herself, "It's giving us a choice." Cade grabbed her by the shoulders. "A choice? It's trapping us. There is one path left, and it's the one it wants us to take." But before Lena could answer him, the glowing figure finally spoke. Not with sound. With resonance, words blooming directly into their minds like memories awakening after ages of sleep. "We are the archive. You are the heirs. The world above has forgotten. You must not." The dome creaked again, tilting farther. Soon it would fall entirely. Lena made her decision. She stepped onto the spiraling ramp of light. It held her weight solid as stone despite being made of energy. May followed instantly, tears in her eyes. Aiden hesitated only a second before joining them. Cade cursed, drew a breath, then stepped onto the path, the last to surrender to the inevitable descent. Behind them, the dome finally gave way and plunged into the abyss, swallowed by the hidden world below. Ahead of them, the figures of light drifted downward, guiding them into the depths, toward the vault. Toward the truth. Toward a memory older than the Ice Age. Chapter 10. The Vault of the 13. The ramp of light carried them deeper than Lena ever imagined a human being could descend beneath the Antarctic ice. The cavern walls widened into a spiraling cathedral, each curve illuminated by enormous veins of glowing geometry. It was not just a cave, it was an engineered space, an impossibly vast chamber shaped by intelligence, purpose, and time. The figures of light's silent guides descended ahead of them. Their humanoid forms pulsed with faint patterns, like memories encoded into light itself. Sometimes Lena glimpsed shifting silhouettes within them, faces, shapes, impressions of people who might have once been flesh and blood. Aidan whispered as he walked. If this is a vault, it's bigger than any megastructure on Earth. Bigger than anything we've theorized could exist under the ice. May pointed to the walls. Those repeating symbols, the circles, the intersecting lines, they aren't just messages. They're maps. Instructions. Possibly data flows? Or warnings, Cade muttered from the rear. The descent finally leveled out into a colossal chamber. It stretched so far into the darkness that Lena couldn't see the opposite wall. Columns of light rose from the floor like trees in a forest, some towering hundreds of meters high, others branching into complex lattices overhead. At the center of the chamber lay the heart of the vault, a circular structure nearly a kilometer across, divided into 13 radiant segments. Each segment glowed faintly as though asleep except one. The first segment blazed with white-blue light. 13 keys, May whispered. We activated one. Aidan stared at the circle, voice trembling. This is a planetary mechanism. A repository. A defense system. A knowledge archive. It's everything. One of the light figures approached the circle and placed its luminous hand upon the active segment. Instantly, symbols erupted across the floor, rippling outward like patterns on water. The segment brightened. A new message formed in the air itself, letters shaped from the glowing mist of the vault. The first key is the key of memory. The archive has reawakened. Cade stepped back. What does that mean? Memory of what? The figure turned toward them. Its fractal patterns shifted, forming images in rapid succession, oceans swallowing coastlines, mountains rising where plains once stood, stars shifting overhead, circular temples of stone, towering crystalline structures, cities of impossible architecture. Human-like figures walked those cities. Then catastrophe. A wave of ice sweeping across a continent. A fragmenting sky. A collapse of light. Lena felt the images hit her like a physical force. It's showing us history. Not ours, Aidan breathed. A history erased. May wiped tears from her eyes. This is a record of a civilization before the ice. And if the figures are human, they're not human, Cade insisted, grasping for rationality. They're something else. Similar, maybe. But not us. Lena stared at the images still shifting above the circle. Or they were humans whose existence never survived the end of their age. A forgotten epoch. The vault responded instantly, words forming along the walls. You are their descendants. The world above forgot us. This vault remembers. Aidan stumbled backward. Oh God, May shook her head, overwhelmed. This changes everything. Lena felt a growing clarity, the icy air no longer biting so sharply, the cavern's pulse synchronizing with her own heartbeat. Why build a vault? She asked aloud, her voice echoing. Why hide all of this beneath Antarctica? The answer appeared across the 13-segmented circle: to end our fall, to preserve our truth, to await your return. A deep rumble shook the chamber, then not destructive, but awakening. 12 dormant segments flickered softly, faintly, like hearts beginning to beat again after ages of stillness. Cade exhaled sharply. Don't tell me it wants us to activate the rest. The figure of light drifted toward Lena until it hovered only inches from her. The fractal patterns that composed its face rotated and reassembled into a form that felt unmistakably human, an expression filled with recognition, sorrow, and hope. Then it spoke again, not in sound, but directly into their thoughts. The world above is dying. The ice will change. The oceans will rise. The cities will fall. The archive holds the keys to survival. Another message formed beneath it: the second key awaits. Lena's heart thundered. Where? The figure raised an arm and pointed deeper into the vault toward a dark passageway lined with dormant light veins. Cade stepped in front of Lena. We are not going deeper. We're scientists, not chosen saviors. We need to get back to the surface and contact. A shockwave pulsed through the chamber, gentle but absolute, silencing him as though a hand had pressed against his chest. The vault spoke with a single, unified message stretching across every wall: there is no surface safe enough. The second key must be revealed, or humanity will fall as we fell. Lena looked at her team. May nodded, eyes wet but resolute. Aiden swallowed but stepped forward. Cade clenched his fists, jaw trembling, but he didn't argue again. Lena turned back toward the dark passageway. Then we find the second key. The lights along the passageway flickered awake, inviting them deeper into the oldest hidden world on Earth. Chapter 11: The Chamber of Echoes. The passageway leading out of the great vault tightened into a long, crystalline corridor. The walls, smooth as ancient glass, were threaded with veins of dormant light that flickered weakly as Lena and her team passed. Each footstep sent ripples of brightness through the floor, as if the very structure recognized their presence. Aiden walked with his seismic reader held close to his chest. No quakes. No shifting ice. Whatever destabilization happened above down here, everything is stable. Because it was made to survive catastrophe, May said softly. This place endured an extinction event and waited for us. Cade grunted. Or waited for someone weird, just the ones who tripped the mechanism. Ahead, the corridor widened into a spherical chamber. Immediately, Lena noticed the difference. This room wasn't made of glowing energy or crystalline ice. It was carved from dark stone so ancient and so unyielding that the air felt heavier inside. At the chamber's center stood a massive monolith, its surface etched with spiraling grooves that looked eerily like fingerprints left by giants. But the monolith wasn't dormant. It pulsed faintly once every few seconds, with the same rhythm echoed across the continent. Pulse. Pause. Pulse. Pause. As they approached, pale mist drifted around the monolith's base, swirling in gentle vortices. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It felt alive. May approached cautiously. This isn't like the first key's structure. This isn't a machine. Aiden whispered, it's biological. Cade drew back. A living monolith? No. No, I'm done. This place is rewriting physics as we know it. But Lena stepped forward, entranced. No, it's a fusion. Bioengineered stone. Organic memory housed inside mineral structures. The moment her gloved fingertips brushed the monolith, it sang. Not with sound. With history. Her mind exploded with visions. She saw towering seas swallowing cities of glass. She saw forests twisting under violent storms. She saw a sun dimmed by ash. She saw frozen continents forming in hours, not millennia. And she saw them. The ones whose faces were carved into light. A civilization of impossible mastery, harnessing energy through geometric resonance, storing knowledge in living stone, bending ecosystems to survive catastrophic shifts. But something went wrong. The climate surged beyond correction. The poles froze. The oceans retreated. The sky fractured. And then silence. The map of their world, even more advanced than anything Lena had imagined, crushed beneath time and returning ice. She staggered back, gasping. May caught her. Lena, what did you see? Before she could speak, the monolith awakened fully. The mist brightened. The grooves along its surface lit with radiant blue. The spiraling pattern rotated like a colossal fingerprint, slowly turning. Then it spoke directly into their minds, as the vault had. The second key is the key of echoes. The memory of our fall. You must not repeat it. Aiden stared at the glowing grooves. It's a recorder. A warning. A blueprint of their last days. More symbols carved themselves into the air around the monolith. The climate of your world approaches the threshold. The ice will shift again. The cities will sink as ours sank. The vault holds the knowledge to prevent your extinction. Lena stepped closer again. How do we activate the second key? The monolith responded immediately. You have already begun. The memory is given. The key is complete. Cade looked around wildly. That's it? We're just shown the apocalypse and told to do better? No, Lena said firmly. We're shown what they couldn't stop and given the chance to stop it ourselves. The monolith pulsed again, brighter, more urgent. A new message appeared. The third key awaits. The key of energy. The power that sustained our world. You must understand it. Aiden's eyes widened. Energy? They had continent-spanning systems. Power sources integrated into ice, stone, and biology. This could change everything. Cade shook his head. Or destroy everything if we misunderstand it. We should turn back. Bring this to the surface coordinate with. He stopped. The corridor behind them had gone dark. The path they'd taken in was gone, sealed by shifting crystalline walls. May whispered, "It's not letting us leave." A final message appeared along the chamber walls. The surface is not safe. The ice is already changing. The third key is necessary. Descend. The monolith's light dimmed. The mist parted, revealing a new passageway opening downward. Into deeper darkness. Deeper mystery. Deeper truth. Lena steadied her breath. Then we descend. And the chamber of echoes sighed as they left, closing behind them like a great stone eyelid, returning to its age-long sleep. Chapter 12. The third key, the heart of the vault. The passageway descending from the chamber of echoes felt vastly older than anything they had encountered so far. The walls were not smooth or luminous, they were jagged, raw, carved by forces that predated even the ancient civilization recorded in the monolith. Veins of dark mineral threaded through the stone, pulsing faintly like sluggish blood. The air thickened, heavy with pressure that made every step feel like walking deeper into the Earth's core. Aiden kept checking his instruments, but they flickered and died. No magnetic readings, no seismic feedback, nothing works here. It's like this passage is absorbing energy. May whispered, or suppressing it. We're stepping into something insulated from the rest of the vault. Cade moved ahead, flashlight trembling slightly in his hand. Good. Maybe that means no more glowing ghosts waiting in the next room. But Lena felt the opposite, an unmistakable sense of presence growing stronger with every step. A hum resonated in her bones, steady and rhythmic. It was not threatening. It was expectant. They emerged into a chamber unlike the others, a vast cavern of obsidian, black walls rising out of sight, smooth as glass and cold as void. At the chamber's center stood a colossal mechanism. A sphere larger than any building Lena had ever seen floated weightlessly above a circular dais. Its surface rippled with liquid metal, shifting patterns like silver waves under starlight. Beneath it, the dais glowed with dormant circuitry, arranged in 13 concentric rings. Only the first 2 rings glowed faintly. Aiden gasped. This is a power core. A generator beyond anything humanity has ever conceived. May approached it with reverent awe. It's alive. This entire sphere is a fusion of biology and physics. It produces energy and regulates it with thought. The vault responded instantly. A single line of light shot down the sphere's surface, coiling into the air and shaping into a message. The third key is the key of energy. The power that sustained our world. The power that failed us. Cade took a step back. Failed. That's comforting. Another message appeared faster now, as if the vault sensed their urgency. Our civilization mastered the forces of matter. We bent geometry into energy. We fed cities with the Earth's resonant fields. We held back the ice. May turned to Lena slowly. They tried to stop their ice age. They succeeded for a time. Lena nodded grimly. But in the end it overwhelmed even them. The sphere pulsed again, and the dais' third ring flickered with faint light. The ice fell because the world shifted beyond our control. The planet changed. We could not change with it. The sphere dimmed mournfully, as if remembering. Lena felt the sorrow like a cold hand around her heart. Aiden lifted his trembling voice. What do you want from us? What is the third key supposed to do? The sphere answered not with words, but with an explosion of imagery. The chamber dissolved into light. Suddenly they were standing not in the vault but within a phantom reconstruction of the ancient world. Towering structures hummed with resonant fields. Oceans glowed with regulated currents. The climate was balanced by engineered frequencies stitched through the crust. A globe appeared Earth, but not their Earth. Continents in different shapes. Seas in different positions. Climate bands shifted. And then the shift. The poles drifted rapidly. Jet streams fractured. Ocean currents collapsed. Mountain ranges lifted in catastrophic quakes. Fields of geometric energy flickered, overloaded, cracked apart. The civilization screamed silently as their world imploded beneath the weight of planetary realignment. Back in the chamber, the sphere whispered its message directly into their minds. The planet will shift again. IT has begun. You must use the third key to stabilize your world. Cade's voice broke. Us? We're 4 people trapped under miles of ice. But the vault replied instantly, you are not alone. The surface will see the signs. They will come. You must guide them. Aiden stumbled forward. But how do we activate the third key? What do we do? The sphere rotated slowly, then opened. Its metallic surface unfurled like petals of molten silver, revealing a core of blinding light. From its heart, a small crystalline object drifted outward, no larger than a human skull, shaped like a multifaceted prism. It floated toward Lena and hovered before her. May held her breath. It's choosing you. Cade whispered, horrified. Why her? Because Lena already knew the answer. This vault remembered her. Not by name but by pattern. Something in her mind resonated with the ancient structures, something the vault recognized as compatible. The prism flickered with a final message. The third key is yours. Understand IT. Share IT. Protect your world. For our fall will be your future unless you change what we could not. The chamber began to shake softly at first, then violently. Dust rained from the ceiling. The sphere closed itself hurriedly, as if protecting its heart. Aiden screamed over the growing roar. The vault is activating. Something's happening across the whole network. The ground split. Light shot through every crack. The 13 rings on the dais surged with power. May grabbed Lena's hand. The vault is waking up. We have to move. Cade pointed upward. There. A lift, some kind of memory stream. Move. The prism moved into Lena's chest, weightless, merging with her like a second heartbeat. She gasped as her vision filled with cascading geometry. The vault roared, ancient and alive. And the team sprinted as the chamber erupted into blinding light. Everything shook. Everything sang. Everything awakened. The vault was not just remembering, it was preparing. Preparing for what? Lena didn't know. Not yet. But she would. Because she now held the third key. And the world above was already beginning to change. Chapter 13, The First Signs Above. The moment the prism merged with Lena, everything dissolved into violent brilliance. The chamber erupted in white-blue light as the dais rings surged with energy, forming a spiraling conduit that shot upward through the cavern's ceiling. The blast of power roared like a hurricane compressed into a tunnel, shaking ancient stone and resonant ice. Lena felt the vault's pulse synchronize with her heartbeat, each thrum a fusion of ancient intention and new purpose. Move. Cade yelled as the floor split open in jagged ruptures. Aiden and May sprinted beside Lena, shielding their faces from the swirling particulate mist that now glowed as if infused with electricity. The figures of light reappeared along the cavern walls, their humanoid outlines urgent, guiding the team toward a rising column of luminescence, a transport mechanism formed from geometry itself. The glowing pathway lifted them with effortless precision. Upward. Up through corridors of shifting light. Up past caverns humming with newfound energy. Up through the vault that had awakened after millennia of silence. As they ascended, the vault's voice filled the air not with a message, but with a call. A pulse radiating outward, sweeping across the subterranean world in a tide of shimmering resonance. May clutched Lena's arm. It's signaling the entire network. Every chamber. Every key. Aiden's voice cracked. It's like a reboot of an entire planetary system. Cade glared upward. Or the system rebooting us. The transport column carried them into a wide chamber near the surface, one they hadn't seen before. Above them, the ice glowed with violent radiance, fractures spreading like illuminated arteries. The fissure they'd fallen through was now a gaping wound in the continent, spilling beams of geometric light into the Antarctic sky. Aidan gasped. Look at the surface. The ice above them was fully translucent now, revealing a surreal phenomenon outside. Aurora-like ribbons spiraled across the sky in rigid, mathematical patterns, hexagons, spirals, intersecting vectors, all rotating around a point in the atmosphere directly above the vault. It wasn't an aurora. It was a signal. Cade's voice rose in panic. Every satellite on Earth is going to see that. The entire world will know something's happening here. May wiped frost from her visor and stared, breath trembling. Then maybe that's the point. The vault's words suddenly appeared across the ice overhead, giant, glowing, carved by invisible forces. The world must remember. The surface shook violently. Snow avalanched down the edges of the fissure. A distant thunder rolled across the continent, not from weather, but from the ice itself rearranging under immense energy. And then the vault opened a path to the world above. A massive slab of ice slid aside like a weightless door, revealing the open Antarctic plateau. The air howled inside, carrying shards of snow. The sky above was no longer natural, pulsing with radiant geometry. The atmosphere transformed into a living map. The moment they stepped onto the plateau, Lena felt the prism pulse inside her chest. Her breath caught as fragmented visions flashed before her eyes, pieces of ancient knowledge flickering like half-remembered dreams. Aidan pointed toward the horizon. Is that clouds? No, that's the magnetic field. It's visible. May focused her telescope. Not visible. Altered. Restructured by frequencies the vault is emitting. Cade shook his head, horrified. Those frequencies will reach the entire planet. The whole climate system is being nudged. This is what it did before their civilization fell. Lena tightened her jaw. No. This is what it tried to do to stop the fall. Everything clicked. The vault wasn't a weapon. It was a stabilizer. A planetary regulator built to counteract catastrophic climate shifts. A fail-safe. A lifeboat. A whisper from the ancient world to its descendants. The prism pulsed again, stronger now. It wanted her attention. It wanted her to understand. She closed her eyes and the knowledge flooded in. A map of Earth. The shifting poles. The weakening jet streams. Ocean currents slowing. Feedback loops accelerating. Glacial collapse already beginning. A timeline terrifyingly short. She gasped and collapsed to her knees. May knelt beside her. Lena. What did you see? Lena trembled. The vault, it wasn't built to save them. It was built to save whoever came after. It's activating because Earth is crossing the same thresholds now. Aidan froze. The 13 keys, they're not just lessons. They're components. Tools. Technologies meant to stabilize the planet. Cade stepped back, scanning the unnatural sky. So that's it. We're supposed to finish what they started. Us. 4 people in the middle of Antarctica. Lena stood slowly, the prism glowing faintly in her sternum like a second, ancient heart. We're not supposed to do it alone, she said softly. The vault opened the sky on purpose. May's breath caught. To call the world. Aiden whispered, to force them to come here. Cade swallowed hard. Then what happens next? The sky answered for them. A new symbol formed among the swirling geometric auroras, a massive sigil visible for hundreds of miles. It was the same sigil carved into the vault. The same sigil the ancient civilization had used. The same sigil that had appeared on Lena's monitors. A circle intersected by 3 lines. The first key. The signal of awakening. Lena stared upward, or overcoming fear. The planet just received the call, she said. And humanity will respond. The prism shimmered with one final message: the 4th key awaits. The world above has felt the shift. Now the awakening begins. Wind roared across the plateau. Lights spiraled across the sky. And far beyond the horizon, the first aircraft began diverting from their flight paths, drawn by the impossible signal rising from the bottom of the world. The hidden world had awakened. And the world above could no longer pretend it was alone. Chapter 14: The 13th Truth. The sky above Antarctica had become a beacon, an impossible geometry of swirling auroras, visible from satellites, aircraft, and every major observatory on Earth. Within hours, the world's governments scrambled emergency task forces. Military aircraft veered toward the South Pole. Research stations declared evacuation protocols. Breaking news screens worldwide broadcast the same headline: unexplained energy event over Antarctica, possible non-terrestrial phenomenon. Lena, Aiden, May, and Cade stood on the trembling plateau, watching the impossible sky as the vault continued its awakening beneath their feet. Light laced through the ice in branching patterns, each pulse resonating with the prism embedded in Lena's chest. Aiden shielded his eyes. They'll be here any minute. Helicopters. Jets. Troops. May pointed at the horizon. They're already here. Dark shapes appeared, 3, then 5, then dozens, aircraft converging like metallic vultures toward the signal. Powerful searchlights swept the plateau. Engines howled across the frozen silence. Cade cursed under his breath. They won't want to understand any of this, they'll want to control it. But Lena barely heard him. The vault was calling. A new message ignited across the ice beneath their feet: the 4th key awaits. The time has come for the world to remember. A low rumble shook the ground, deep, resonant, unlike anything yet heard. The fissure widened with a grinding moan, revealing another level of the vault far below. But it wasn't an opening of stone and ice. It was an entrance of light. A perfect spiral. May swallowed. It wants us to go back down. Cade shook his head violently. We're not going anywhere. We need to negotiate with the teams landing out here. We need. A deafening roar cut him off. A military tiltrotor aircraft descended nearby, kicking up blinding snow. Soldiers poured out, armored, moving with precision. They surrounded the group instantly. Hands where we can see them. One shouted. Another barked, identify yourselves. Step away from the fissure. Cade raised his hands. Everyone stay calm, but the ice beneath the soldiers began to glow. A perfect circular symbol ignited under their boots, the symbol of the 1st key. A soldier gasped. What the hell? The vault replied. Not with attack. With recognition. The symbol pulsed 3 times. The soldiers stumbled back, forming a defensive perimeter, but they didn't fire. Something in their posture changed. They weren't just afraid, they were hearing it too. The vault's message whispered into every mind nearby: the world must remember. No force can stop the truth. Lena felt the prism respond, throbbing like a second heart. She stepped toward the spiral of light. Lena. Aiden grabbed her arm. What are you doing? She turned. It's the fourth key. It wants to show us something. All of us. Military rifles trained on her. Cade stepped in front of her instinctively. She's not going anywhere with you pointing guns at her. But then the spiral of light pulsed. Reality bent. Every person present, the scientists, the soldiers, the pilots, froze as a projection erupted across the sky. Not an image. A memory woven from radiant geometry. It showed a civilization older than the Ice Age, thriving with impossible technology. Atmosphere stabilized by resonant fields. Continents sculpted for balance. Energy flowing like water. Then came the shift. The poles moved. The currents collapsed. The vault activated. 12 keys engaged, but the 13th never lit. The world shattered. The survivors retreated to the vault, not for safety, but to encode themselves into light. Humanity had not descended from apes alone. It had descended from them. Gasps rippled through the soldiers, through Aiden, through May, through everyone witnessing the cosmic truth rewriting history. But the vision wasn't done. The final memory showed something terrifying, a celestial event, subtle, invisible, yet catastrophic. A gravitational ripple passing through the solar system. Not a meteor. Not a comet. A wave. The same kind of wave Earth was now beginning to encounter again. The vault's voice boomed across the plateau. The 13th key was never forged. We failed to prepare. You must finish what we began. Lena whispered, trembling. What is the 13th key? The vault answered, the key is not a device. The key is a species. A mind. A people unified. Cade's eyes widened. It's talking about us. Humanity. Modern humanity. But the vault continued, the 13th key is consciousness itself. The key is awakening. The key is all of you. The spiral of light surged, enveloping everyone in blinding radiance. Lena felt her mind expand, felt the prism synchronize with every human consciousness nearby, weaving them into a network of thought. A unified field. A collective resonance. The missing piece. The soldiers fell to their knees, overwhelmed. Aiden and May clutched their heads as waves of understanding swept through them. Cade stared at Lena, eyes horrified but full of awe. Lena, it's using us. No, she breathed. It's activating us. Then the sky tore open. Not physically but perceptually. A ripple in spacetime shimmered across the atmosphere like a cosmic wave. The same kind of gravitational ripple that destroyed the ancient world. The vault screamed into their minds, the wave comes again. You have days. The keys must be united. The world must become one. Lightning erupted across the artificial auroras. Aircraft spiraled out of control. The ice cracked like thunder. The vault's symbols flared across the continent. And then the twist. Lena turned toward the horizon just as a shadow appeared, a massive, triangular silhouette descending through the clouds. Not human. Not ancient. Not from the vault. May whispered, voice breaking, that's not from Earth. The vault reacted in terror, its light stuttering violently. A final message seared across the ice, brighter than the sun. They are not the ones who came before. They are the ones who ended US. They have returned. The ground trembled with incoming shockwaves. Lena staggered backward, heart racing, prism burning. The sky filled with impossible geometry, alien to the vault, alien to Earth. A second wave approached. Not natural. Not cosmic. Sent. Aiden whispered, frozen in fear, "What do we do?" Lena looked toward the soldiers, the vault, the sky, the rising shadow. We'll either become the 13th Key or we become the second lost world. No one is ready for what comes next. The end.